South Carolina senators sue Governor Henry McMaster over his interim Santee Cooper board chairman appointment. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down exclusively with State Representative Nancy Mace one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores and listen to this interview later on the free Quintin's Close-Ups iHeartRadio podcast. Representative Nancy Mace.
Yes, sir.
It's so good to see you again.
Good to see you as always.
Oh,
I enjoy you. So.
Oh, thank you greatly.
Yeah.
There's so much news going on right now.
There is.
And I want to go to some developing news, and this is just a headline from the Post and Courier, but it says this: Senators sue Governor McMaster over Santee Cooper appointment. Obviously, former South Carolina Attorney General Charlie Condon was appointed by the governor to be the interim chairman of Santee Cooper.
Recently.
That's right. And a lot of those politicians are basically saying, hey, he didn't have the right to do it because we weren't in session or whatever was going on.
Correct.
Can you talk to me about what happens next?
Well, this is breaking news. I think it came out yesterday, and so I'm still reading about it and learning about it. And so I'm not sure what's next. I don't know if the governor will back off that nomination or appointment because of the lawsuit, or if they will actually fight over it. I'm not sure yet. So we're all kind of watching and waiting and seeing what happens. But this is why people hate the government and hate politics, is to see some of this going on. And you've got folks up in Columbia that want things a certain way because that's the way that they've always been. And when someone tries to come in and do something differently, it just shakes things up a little bit too. But I don't know, so I'm not an attorney, and it's something that has to do with the Constitution, whether or not we were in session technically or not with regards to the appointment. But it's something that I'm still reading about, watching, and learning. And
we get to the other side, the governor basically says, hey, the law is clearly on his side.
Absolutely. So, and I support Governor McMaster, and we'll just see how it shakes out. But I do think that there are really two really significant issues with regards to the Low Country right now. The first off being infrastructure. We're woefully ill-prepared for what has been going on the last couple of decades and for the future growth that we have down here. But secondly, it's VC Summer, or the nuclear power plant mess. And so with regards to Santee Cooper and SCANA, these are very hot button topics for people. And we have lawmakers that are up there that were part of the problem. I mean, they're part of the reason we have the Baseload Review Act today, and that this has happened. And so it's a very sensitive issue for the voters of the Low Country, in particular in my district too, because District 99, which is Daniel Island, Hanahan, part of Goose Creek, and North Mount Pleasant, we all primarily pay our utility bills to SCE&G. So it's a very sensitive issue for us down here.
You talk about SCE&G, obviously they lost their ability to stop the temporary nuclear-related rate cuts that start Tuesday. Average bill drops to $17 a month throughout the end of the year. How relieved are you?
That was a big deal, because what I learned in this session, when I talk to people in the district, they want their rates rolled back. They want a refund for the last 9 or 10 years. They had 9 rate increases. They want their money back because they're paying in perpetuity for a nuclear power plant that will never be built, that they'll never see a kilowatt of energy from. But constitutionally, because of the Baseload Review Act, we are confined in a box. So what the General Assembly did this session, which was a big deal, was to roll back the Baseload Review Act prospectively, so in the future, so that it wouldn't apply. And there's going to be a lawsuit over whether that is legal or not for the legislature to do that because of the Dominion deal that's on the table right now. They want the Baseload Review Act enacted going forward forever, because anytime they go to the PSC or Public Service Commission for a rate increase, they get it. In fact, just this session, while we're fighting over reducing rates for ratepayers, even if it's just a temporary relief, it's still relief. It still matters. Ultimately, at the end of the day, the law says the Public Service Commission is the final arbiter of rate increases. So for us to be able to get a temporary relief, it's important to folks who are utility customers at SCE&G. But also, during all this mess, this session, and it was not written about, there was not a lot of coverage of it, but the PSC raised rates $1.25 or just over $1, not an enormous increase, but they raised those rates $1.25. And I met with a member of the Public Service Commission yesterday, and I asked pointedly, didn't get an answer. They don't know why. They don't even remember the rate increase and don't even know why. And so I sit here and I scratch my head as a businesswoman who's looking at this from that perspective. How do you not know? And why can't you tell me why there was that, even though minimal, small, I don't care. It's still a rate increase while we're trying to roll back rates for those that are paying utilities at SCE&G right now. It's galling and it's unacceptable in my behavior, which is why we need to have, when the elections come back up for members respectively, the next one that we'll have will be for the 2nd district coming up. We didn't get that done this session, but that's coming up this fall. And so we need to make sure that we're not electing people who've been there for a very long time and we're part of the problem. And that when you ask them a pointed question about rate increases and why, that they actually have an answer for you. Because not having an answer on that board is unacceptable.
And also, SCANA says it will appeal Monday's federal court order denying SCE&G's motion for a preliminary that is, injunction to block a temporary 15% rate cut passed by South Carolina lawmakers, and will seek an expedited consideration from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. How much more energy do you guys have to gotten?
I'm high energy. You put me in there, I'll be there all day long. I'll be there all day long. But you know, the fact of the matter is, when I talk to people in the community in my district, they want all of the rate increases rolled back. They want a refund, and they don't want to pay for this going forward. And so, you know, it's finding that balance. I wanted the full 18 or 19.23% rolled back, but we got 15. I'm going to take the 15. I'm going to take it while we can. But we need to think about and figure out what can be done permanently.
Okay.
And so that's where the rub is. We have a monopoly of energy in this state. We don't have competition. There is no competition. So you don't have the option, if you're an SCE&G customer or Santee Cooper customer, to go buy energy from another utility right now. It's just not. There's some people that have solar, and that provides some, you know, relief for those who can afford to install solar panels on their home. So it's but other than that, there are no options. There's no competition right now. It is a complete monopoly, and that's the problem. What we see is when we don't have a free market, this is what happens.
And let me take you back to your home, Daniel Island. The proposal for a magnificent Tri-County Park on the tip of Daniel Island is proposed by Representative Mark Sanford, with others pushing for the funding for a long-term project on scale with larger cities. So talk to me about that.
That's an interesting idea. Congressman Sanford brought up this idea when he was governor, and I'm still playing catch up, but I've met with him on the subject, and I was at the press conference for it, because it's a 400-acre park of scale is the idea. Now, right now on the tip of Daniel Island, all those dredging and soils are going over there, so it's not usable land right now. So this is an opportunity or project that, if it were to be implemented, isn't going to happen for 75 to 100 years. But I love and support the idea of a park of scale on Daniel Island. I think it would add to the natural beauty of the island, because as Congressman Sanford said, we can't develop every inch of Charleston. Charleston is going to lose its charm if we continue down the path that we have gone through. Now, there's some other opportunities on the island also. There's a 250-acre saltwater mitigation bank that will be turned into a passive park. That has been started, but it's been paused due to some other issues ancillary to it. I talked with the Ports Authority last week, and there's a 50-acre parcel of property that they're looking at and turning into a park. Also, these are on the Cooper Riverside. And so, you know, as we're looking at these opportunities, one, we need to make sure that we'll have the infrastructure to be able to handle it. So how are people going to get to any of these parks? And is it going to clog up our neighborhood streets? Or is there an opportunity on the Cooper Riverside to build a separate road to come down there? I do think that these are opportunities that we need to pursue strongly and provide for our community, not just for Daniel Island, but for the surrounding areas. Because if we continue to develop the way that we have, there'll be nothing left. And we have a $20 billion tourism industry here, and when people come and visit, they don't ever want to leave. It's beautiful, and we have pristine beaches. We don't want offshore drilling because our beaches are so beautiful.
Okay.
People come down here to visit. We have live oak trees that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. We have great food and great hospitality and great people. And when they visit, they never want to leave. And I've seen figures anywhere from 30 to 50 people a day are moving here. And you see all the apartments downtown, all the multifamily going up in Mount Pleasant and downtown. Also, all the hotels that are going up. I mean, it's never ending right now. And so we need to preserve some of our land for folks for the future. If we don't do it, it'll be developed. And nobody wants that. We've got to preserve our culture down here.
And you talked a lot about infrastructure during this particular Quintin's Close-Ups interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you about the South Carolina Department of Transportation. As we sit here right now, where is your confidence in the South Carolina Department of Transportation?
It's a day-by-day sort of thing. When the Wando Bridge broke down, that was a real wake-up call, because I had been asking, since the day I got elected, I had several meetings with representatives from the South Carolina Department of Transportation, because I promised to get to understand what some of the issues are, some of the funding, spending, et cetera. And I met with them 4 times in the first 4 weeks of being in office. And have been trying to get to the bottom of some of those. I have a lot of questions that were similar to ones I asked during the Wando Bridge debacle, trying to get answers that I still do not have answers for. And I don't put up with BS. I call a spade a spade. And I have no problem being aggressive when we need to be on a particularly sensitive and an issue that is extremely important to the Low Country, because I just don't feel like we are getting what we deserve down here with the growth that we have, with the economic development going on, when we have a port that provides billions of dollars in economic activity, not just in the Low Country, but throughout the entire state, and it affects other populations, cities, municipalities, and their economic development too, and jobs and growth, et cetera. We have a huge tourism industry. I mean, you talk about roads and traffic, and on this particular section of 526, we see anywhere from 72 to 92,000 vehicles per day, and of that, you're looking at 3,000-4,000 trucks per day too. And so, the Wando Bridge was a real eye-opener to see what the issues are, because that bridge hasn't been maintained properly, in my opinion, since it was built. And that is the reason we had all the moisture-related corrosion on those cables. And so the more I learn, the more questions I have. And I'm still trying to get to the bottom of it. I have a letter from Secretary Hall, but it doesn't answer all of my questions. And the questions that are answered, I don't feel like all of them were answered, as they should have been. I have confidence in DOT. I think they got the Wando Bridge done quickly, and they've got it done efficiently. But in terms of the entity over the last 2 or 3 decades, absolutely not. That bridge was not built. They had a lot of problems with it when it was built, and those problems have not ended. And that's not Secretary Hall's fault at all, but I fault the agency for the lack of maintenance on that bridge, and for the issues it had when it was built. I mean, I learned that the bridge was never even sealed across the entire top of it, and so we had all this moisture coming in, which then corroded the cables, and they've known about the corrosion since 2010. And recently, just a few months ago, or 6 months ago or so, there was an electronic sign put up going eastbound and westbound on 526, advising the container trucks to get in the far right lane, which is a truck lane going over the bridge, and that's where they're supposed to go anyway, but that's not why the sign was put up. I find out later that the sign was put up because of some of the issues with the cables that they inspected on the bridge. And I sort of wonder, why weren't we notified? Well, apparently there was a tweet or something about it, but I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. And when it comes to, the maintenance and safety, road safety and maintenance, I mean, that's of utmost importance. And when I campaigned for all 3 of my elections in the fall and in the winter this pass go around for the special election. That's the number one issue on everybody's mind, followed by the nuclear power plant stuff. So it's still top of mind, and I'm still digging. Anytime I have an opportunity, we recently, Charleston County, I'm on the Bridges and Roads Committee for the Charleston County delegation. We had a public meeting, and DOT was there, and I asked questions again because I really want to get at the spending. And I am 7 months into my term. I got sworn in January 23rd. We're now in August, and I still don't have those answers. I want a regional breakdown. I want a breakdown per road mile, per bridge mile. I want to know what the environmental effects of being on the coast have to do with the cost of building roads here, bridges, and maintenance. I mean, it's a significantly greater cost to us in the Low Country to build our roads and bridges than it is, my belief is, than it is anywhere else in the state. And if you look at our traffic counts, we've got, I mean, look at the tourism, we've got it. I mean, we've got all the development going on. It needs to be the number one issue that we have to fix. And I'm just one person, but I'm working damn hard to try to get answers for people because it's important. It affects me and my family. It affects you and yours. It affects everybody in our community. You got to be able to get to work. You got to be able to get the kids to school, get your activities, etc. And when that bridge shut down, the entire city shut down, and it's unacceptable.
And you obviously talk about your community. You talk about the future. You talk about infrastructure. Let me talk to you about flooding. Where are we with this particular discussion in your mind?
It's more of an issue on the peninsula than anywhere else. We don't have, and Hanahan has some flooding issues on some of their roads. Daniel Island doesn't have it as much, but really where we're seeing it is downtown on the peninsula, which, you know, people need to be reminded of is our tourist hub for the Low Country. It is of seminal importance to that industry down here. And now there's now a seawall coalition of folks folks that are coming together that I'm supportive of to try and help with some of those issues. But particularly downtown, if it sprinkles, it floods, and that affects everybody and their ability to get to work, their property values, and their quality of life.
Quality of life. Mm-hmm. How do you describe that right now?
Well, I think we have it pretty good down here, I feel like. I mean, we live in the most beautiful places in the country, and there are lots of opportunities for jobs down here. I mean, I feel like, you know, this is the best place in the world to live.
And I don't know if I'll be able to interview you between now and January.
Yeah, November is when the general is.
Oh, that's right. But if you were to be reelected again and go back to Columbia and serve obviously the constituents of House District 99, what would you do on day one?
Continue what I started this session and tackling the issues that I think are of utmost importance here in our community, which I did, you know, putting forth legislation that's important. We pre-file bills in December. Right. And so that is important for me once I get through November to work on what I'm going to pre-file for next session, that will get done in December, and to continue to work hard because it's not rocket science, but I feel like based on my win 3 times in a row last time that the voters are really ready for someone who, one, has a business background and acumen, who will look at our challenges from that perspective. Because sometimes there's an easier, simpler, more common sense way to tackle those issues. Because I'm up there and I just scratch my head like, what the hell did we just do? And why does that doesn't make any sense sometimes. And sometimes it does. But we need people that have that business background and acumen. We need someone who's going to look after taxpayer dollars because so much is wasted. I mean, this budget, and I write about all the big issues, but I wrote about the budget recently, and there was $117 million in excess debt service funds at the end of the budget, and basically that's just a slush fund for the end of the budget process, and those funds should have been spent in the normal budget process. We shouldn't be playing with money at the last minute, spending hundreds of millions of dollars for I'm going to call them pet projects, and some of them are for core functions of government. But it's just a backdoor method to sending money to special projects you've been trying to do, and really it should go through the normal budgeting process. Just as one example, but also the voters want someone who's going to work hard. When the Wonder Bridge issue happened, I was all over it. I ate, lived, slept, breathed, bridge. That's all I did for the time that the bridge was down until it was reopened. And I'm continuing down that path because I have more questions. I need more answers. I need better answers than I've received so far. And that's important. I mean, just the other day, we were having an issue with getting off the exit ramp going westbound on the Wando Bridge. We had some barriers in the way, and we got a lot of complaints, and individual residents were trying to reach out to DOT, and we're getting the runaround. And I made a phone call, and we were able to get it done in an hour to alleviate some of the frustration that drivers were having to get off the exit for Daniel Island. And so, you know, having someone who's going to be on top of it and going to be responsive has allowed folks, even if they don't agree with me on every single policy, but I've had Democrats come up to me and thank me for the work that I've done on that, because it's so important to their daily lives, their work commutes, their school commutes, other activities, etc. It's important to have a representative who's going to work hard and be there for you, no matter what. And that's what I'm going to be and have been in the 7 months that I've been in office. I represent my community, I represent everybody, and I'm going to work damn hard to make sure that we continue the quality of life that we have no matter what.
And let me turn to some good news.
Yeah.
Katy Arrington, she's able to walk now and drive apparently.
Yeah, she had her cast off,
That's
right?
right,
Yep.
exactly right. I saw the Facebook video. Where are you emotional with this news?
Well, I think it's great for Republicans for November, and it's my hope, and I know she works very hard and her heart's in it. It's going to be tough for her physically to campaign. I know a lot of people have stepped up to help her, including myself, and offered to volunteer to get out there. But I think the community has a lot of love for her, and she's going to sail to election in November.
Representative Nancy Mace, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. As always,
Anytime.
I enjoy it. Yeah.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
sure.
Anytime.
Okay.
All right.